I'm so excited to share the word that God has laid on my heart for you this morning. And as Dad said, it is obviously a little bit geared towards mothers, but I really believe that this is a word for everybody. Men, women, children, it doesn't matter what season of life that you're in. This is a word that God has for you. The title of my message today is Follow the Yellow Brick Road. And you know what? When you think about that and you look at it, I was trying to come up with a title and I shared that with a few people and they were like, why don't you just use that? I was like, I don't know, it just feels kind of tacky. But the more I tried to think about something different and pray if it was supposed to be something different, I just kept coming back to this. And so when you hear that, follow the yellow brick road, a lot of our minds probably instantly went to a specific movie. Am I right? Right? We're going to the Wizard of Oz. We think about Dorothy and her red shoes, and we think about the witch, and we think about the Tin Man or the lion or all these different things when we think about the yellow brick road. Well, I knew the story that God wanted me to share about in my Mother's Day message. I wasn't exactly sure where he wanted me to go with it, but I knew that God had highlighted a specific story in the Bible to communicate with you today. And so, as Pastor shares often, God speaks to him through movies. And he'll show him how Christ is resilient and the good guys always win and all these things. If you know him, he's a Western kind of guy and he loves those types of stories. And I feel like, because I've always heard him share that, God does that with me a lot. I feel like I can find Jesus or a biblical message in almost any movie that I watch. I'm like, that all came because of Jesus. And they're like, well, that was magic. And I'm like, but it originated because of this story in the Bible or whatever. And so I love to show my kids that. Dad's always done that for me. And I feel like that's what I was doing. So I was watching a movie and it was, everybody has their opinions on what to watch and what not to watch, but it was good. I had the privilege of seeing the Wicked play on Broadway several years ago. So I wanted to watch the movie. I wanted to see the Wicked movie. And so I watched it. It is a musical. If you hate musicals, you won't enjoy the movie. But I did. And there's just one scene in the movie that the wizard makes this statement. And I began to think, and I was like, God, am I supposed to go somewhere with this? God, are you showing me that I'm supposed to use this to communicate what you have to share today? And so I needed to share all of that with you. And we're going to show you this 10-second clip. And then I'm going to dive in a little more about what I'm sharing today.
I think people need direction. When this thing gets built, everybody is going to remember that if you just follow the road, it's going to lead you right to me.
Now, they make this look scary, right? Sorry to ruin the movie if you haven't seen it, but the wizard is full of it. It's all a facade. It's all a lie. All his magic, all his stuff, it's all fake. None of it's real, right? But in the beginning, he says, I think everyone needs a little direction. And if they'll just follow the yellow brick road, it will lead everybody straight to me. And that's what I want to communicate to you today. Is as a parent, as a mom, as a young person, wherever you are in the season of life, our goal should be to follow the road that leads directly to him. That's where we have to be. There's lots of different routes. There's lots of ways to get there, but we've got to get on the road that takes us there. God is so good to us that he weaves together the faithful obedience of his people to bring about his redemptive purposes in the world. I love the last song that they sang today, and it's my main verse. It is my favorite verse that the Lord allowed me to use in my message today, and it's Romans 8:28, and it says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I love this verse. It's my life verse. It's what God has done for me over and over again. And I hope that you can see as I communicate this message today that if you didn't see it before, that this is what God does for you over and over again. But there's so many routes that we can take to get there. How many of you have ever put in on your map the directions to go somewhere? Surely everyone in here has used their Google or Apple Maps before at some point, right? So you map it, and it puts in all these different route options, right? It says, here's your fastest route. Here's your route to avoid the most traffic, to avoid the most turns. Like, there's all these different options, right? There's these things that come up, and then you get to choose which route you want to take. Well, a few months ago, Stephen and I were down in Baton Rouge with the kids. We had been down there, and we were coming home. And it was in the afternoon that we were heading home, and we were like, okay, we want to find the fastest way to get out of Baton Rouge and home. So we know how to get home from Baton Rouge. We do go there. But the fastest way out of Baton Rouge, we don't know because we're not in this specific location all the time, right? So we put it in the map because we want to use it to get out of Baton Rouge onto the interstate as fast as we can. So we map it, and it gives us some different route options, and we choose the one, obviously, that's the fastest because we want to get everywhere in a hurry, right? There's always somewhere to be, and we want to get there quickly. So we choose a route option, and when we select it, this warning pops up, and it says, probable dangerous weather conditions on this route. Please choose another. We said, ignore. Choose anyway. Oh, it's fine. We live in Louisiana. We've been through hurricanes and massive storms and flooding and all that. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. We're going home. We want to get there as fast as we can. So we get in the car, we load up the kids, and we get on the interstate. And we're headed home, and we get about halfway home, and it's raining pretty hard. I don't feel like we were in a super low area that would be like flooding, but obviously we're being mindful and watchful. And then all of a sudden the rain stops. Like it just stops. And the sky gets really dark. But it's like getting dark anyway, so I'm just hopeful that it's just getting dark, it just got really cloudy, it's okay. And then our phone alarms start going off. Tornado warning, tornado warning. And makes that really loud alert. And Gavin has a phone, and Stephen and I both have a phone, and so all three of our phones are buzzing, and my kids are like, Mom, what's happening? And then we look out the window, and we're passing by this big open field, and I see a tornado in the field. And I'm like, babe. He's like, I know. I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, I'm getting off this exit. I'm like, hurry. He's like, it's on the floor, Tori. I'm going as fast as I can. So we pull off the interstate, we pull up in this gas station, we open the doors. The wind is blowing so hard, it feels like it is gonna rip the doors off of the car. So I grab the two little ones, and we run in the store, and other people have done this, are pulling in with us, getting off the highway, getting into somewhere more safe, right? So everybody's kind of moving to the middle of the store. Gavin, for whatever reason, is taking forever to get out of the car. And so Stephen is waiting on Gavin. And so I go to the door, and someone's like, ma'am, you need to get back. And I'm like, my husband and my son are still out here. And they're like, oh. And so the wind is blowing so hard that the doors have suctioned closed. And so when they get to the door, somebody has to go push the door open. We get them inside. Now everybody's in, right? So we're all huddled up, and our little five is there, and we're just praying. We're praying, we're speaking faith, we're praying scripture. I'm like, I don't care what anybody else thinks. We're about to pray this thing away and the protection of God over our family. And so, the transformers blow, the power goes out. It was intense. It was very intense. Trash cans rolling through the parking lot, it was crazy. So it all goes, a tornado comes real fast, and then it leaves real fast, right? So it's gone now. And so we all pull up the radar. We take about 15 or 20 minutes and make sure it's really gone. And so then we're like, okay, let's go. And my kids are like, out there? You want us to go get back on the road? I'm like, yeah, guys, we have to go home. We're not going yet. I'm like, yes, we are. It's going to be fine. We're going to be okay. There were other options that I could have taken that would have made us not have to endure this part of what we're having to walk through now, right? My map showed me other options. It even gave me a warning that I chose to ignore. But the reality was I had to make a decision to get back on the road. We had to choose to go back. And so now, what am I going to do with what's happened? What am I going to do with the trauma that I've just caused to my children? How am I going to navigate this moving forward? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the story of Ruth. We have to remember that in all things, that Jesus is our refuge. He is what we have to lean on and push into no matter what is happening in our lives. No matter what we've been through, we have to remember that Jesus is our refuge. Ruth is a Moabite woman, and she marries into this Israelite family. And her mother-in-law's name is Naomi, and her sister-in-law's name is Orpah, and they marry these two brothers. Well, then the husband, Naomi's husband, their father-in-law, and both their husbands die. And so if you know anything about biblical times, for you to not have a man or a son to carry on your family name or to take care of you, you are poverty-stricken. You are, there's really seems to be no hope left for your life. That's where they are in the process. And so in Ruth 1:16, Naomi says she's going home. She's going back to the land of the Israelites. She's returning. And her two daughters-in-law, she knows there's nothing for them there. You should go home to your families, to your gods. You should go home to those people. That will be the easiest, best path for you. Go there. That's where you should go. And you know what? Ruth says in Ruth 1:16, but Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. You see, Ruth had been watching Naomi's life. She's watched her lose her husband. She's watched her lose her sons. And something has been lived out in Naomi's life that has been so drastic and so wonderful and so captivating that she says, no way. I'm not leaving you. I don't want to go serve the gods that my family serve. There's something special about this God that you serve. There's something different about this. I have to stay with you. I have to go with you. So Ruth is having a conversion to Christ. She's saying, oh my gosh, don't tell me to go anywhere else. I have to go with you because I've watched you lean on Jesus as your refuge. I've watched you allow yourself to take refuge in him, lean into him in ways that I've never seen or experienced before. And I have to be close to that. I have to be close to that. As a mom, we look at our children and we look at their gifts and their talents and their attributes, the things that they're good at and that we see as successful or that could make them successful. And we have this really bad tendency, not just as moms, but as parents, to put this pressure on our children to try to make them live out what we want for them. But let me tell you something. It's not our responsibility to walk out the call of God on our kids' lives. What we have to do is put them on the yellow brick road that's going to lead them to him consistently. Because if we make sure they're on that road, guess what? They're going to walk out the call. They're going to do what God's called them to do because eventually our dreams for them will fail. Their own dreams for themselves will fail. At some point in their life, they are going to walk through failure. And if we haven't taught them to take refuge in Jesus, what are they going to do? What are they going to lean on? What are they going to fall to if we haven't led by example, showing them who to take refuge in? Like Naomi showed Ruth, I'm going to choose to take refuge in Jesus. In God, in the God who I trust. She didn't know who Jesus was yet, but she's going to take refuge in God. That's going to be her refuge. And because of that, Ruth began to make an impact in her family. The number 2 thing that we have to do, we have to know that Jesus is our refuge, and then we have to know that Jesus is our hope. Ruth saw something in Naomi. She wanted to follow her. right? We've communicated that. But now the next thing was you have to keep moving forward. Have you ever been at a place in your life where you've looked at your circumstances and what's happened and the amount of loss and grief and hardship that you've been faced with in a season and thought, nothing good can ever come from this? Number one, that's wrong, because the word says in Romans 8:28 that God works all things together for the good of those who are called, who love God and are called according to his purpose. The word totally contradicts that anyway. But on top of that, we have to keep moving forward and trusting in God and what he has for us. And so now I'm going to read to you in Ruth chapter 1, verses 19 through 21. So this is right after Ruth says, I'm not leaving you. I'm not going anywhere. She says, so the two of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by their arrival. Is it really Naomi, the women asked? But Naomi was living in a season where she was feeling that feeling. Nothing good can come of what I've been through. And so she says, don't call me Naomi. Instead, call me Mara. For the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. I'm sharing this so that you know that even this woman of faith walked through seasons where she felt so lost and so broken and so alone. She said, don't even call me by that name. The cards I've been dealt, what I've had to walk through and navigate is so difficult and so terrible that don't even. You better change my name, because what God has dealt for me is bitter and terrible and awful. But what she couldn't see, and what we so often can't see, is the big plan that God has at work for us all the while. Naomi didn't know how to navigate this, but what she did do was keep moving forward. She brought her family, she and Ruth, from the Moabite land back to the Israelite land. She brought them home. She made a decision to move forward. Now, she still didn't understand it. She still didn't know what good could come from it, but she did it. She kept going. We cannot get stuck in a place of our grief and our sadness and our sorrow and our hardships. We have to make a decision to get up and to keep moving forward. We have to. That's what God's called for us. Sometimes our circumstances look bleak and we can't make sense of what's happening or why. But what we have to do is continue to trust him. We have to do all that we can and then trust God to do what we can't. We have to have the hope in him and trust him to do what we cannot. You know, it's really easy to look at how everybody else is navigating their road and how everybody else is, especially as mamas, how they're parenting, and compare ourselves to everyone else, to make snap judgments of how people are parenting. But let me tell you something, it's wrong. If you've ever looked at a situation and you've watched a parent in a restaurant and thought, I will never let my kid do that. You don't have kids yet. You should never say never, and you should never say always. I just contradicted myself if you didn't catch that. Because you don't know until you know. You don't realize. You just don't realize. And it's not our responsibility to judge what other people are doing. It is our job to steward the children that God has given us. Because let me tell you something, mamas. It doesn't matter that they're yours. They're his. They're his kids first. We are. I am. I love my parents, but I am God's first. And it was their job to steward me. And now it's my job to steward my children. My kids, bless them, all the times ask me, well, so-and-so's mom said that was fine. That's great. I'm not their mom. Well, so-and-so's mom said they could watch that. That's great. I'm not their mom. Well, so-and-so's mom said they could listen to this. That's great. I'm not their mom. I'm your mom. And God's given me the wisdom and the ability to teach and to steward you. God has given me the gifts and the talents and the wisdom and the knowledge and the resources to steward you. I'm happy to give anybody counsel if you ask for it, but I am not going to judge you for how you parent. God is the only judge. It's not my job. If we could all come to that realization and stop comparing ourselves to everyone around us, it changes everything. We cannot get stuck. This is what I would call on our yellow brick road a pit stop or a detour that we take. And guess what? When we stay there for too long, it doesn't mean that the call's still not on our lives. It doesn't mean that the road is still not there. It doesn't mean that we can't get back to it. But what it means is that we're making it take longer. You're not going to throw out the call of God on your life. You may have to take a different route to get there. It may take you longer than you ever expected. But the call is still there if you will just lean on him. And brings me to our final point, that you will allow Jesus to be your Redeemer. Jesus is our Redeemer. He's your refuge. He's your hope. But oh my goodness, he's your Redeemer. So the next part of the story that I want to share with you, the story of Ruth. Naomi takes them back to the land of the Israelites. And they're hungry. They need food. And they don't have men to go provide for them. And so she begins to go glean in a field the harvest and the grain that is being dropped by the laborers that are out there. And she begins to work in a field, and she just so happens to end up working in a field that belongs to one of their relatives, to what Scripture refers to it as a kinsman redeemer. Ruth doesn't know it at first, but she goes home and she shares with Naomi who she's working for. And Naomi gets so excited and she's like, oh my goodness, he can redeem us. He can redeem our family. And she gives her instructions of what to go do, of how to set herself before Boaz and say, make her intentions very clear that I would love for you to redeem our family. But Ruth has become known as a virtuous woman of integrity in this area as she has remained loyal to Naomi this whole time. Because God weaves together the faithful obedience of his people to glorify the kingdom. And so in Ruth chapter 3, verses 10 through 12, this is Boaz talking to Ruth. He said, the Lord bless you, my daughter, Boaz exclaimed. You are showing even more loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. So Boaz figured out there was actually somebody else that could have redeemed her. And so because he's a man of integrity, he's an honest man, he goes before all the townspeople, he does all the right things, and asks this man, do you want to redeem this land and this family? And he says no. And so Boaz goes, and it says he took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife. When he slept with her, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. Boaz became the redeemer for Naomi and for Ruth. He came in and redeemed their family line. And it's so cool when we realize how amazing God is, that his plan for them was better than they could have ever dreamed. But because they chose to take refuge in Jesus, because they chose to keep their hope in him, and then allow this to step in and be their redeemer, now Ruth is the grandmother of King David. The book of Ruth closes by sharing the genealogy, which sometimes we get bored with and we don't want to read about, right? But it's important, and you should read it and study it because it does matter. So Ruth becomes the grandmother of King David. And if you don't know, King David is in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ. Y'all, Jesus loves us so much. He's our Redeemer. He paid the ultimate price, the ultimate sacrifice to be our Redeemer that allows us to be in the bloodline of Jesus. His blood was shed on the cross for me and for you. Now, how are we going to live that out before our children? What are we going to do to ensure that we show them how to get on this road? Because guess what? There comes a point where your kids, no matter how tight you try to hold on and how much control you try to have over their lives, they are going to have to start making their own decisions. I'm preaching to the choir, I know. I'm just entering the season of life. I have a teenager. It's weird. But I have to start trusting him to make his own choices and even make his own mistakes while he's still in my house. And I have the authority and the ability to guide him through it. Because if I make every decision for him between now and when he's on his own, he won't know how to follow the road. He won't know how to take refuge in Jesus. He's going to be looking for refuge in me. I'm not his Savior. I'm not going to get him to heaven. Jesus is. The tighter we hold on sometimes. Now, mind you, I'm a protective parent, and I do limit a lot of things. I'm not saying go let it be a free-for-all. But sometimes they'll ask me to do things, and I'll say, even with my younger two, okay, here's the options of what you could choose. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Well, what do you think, Mom? I'm giving no opinion. These are what you can do. There are consequences or rewards that go along with each of these things. But it's your choice. It's your choice. So they'll choose it. And sometimes it's wrong. So then they'll walk it out and be like, well, this happened because I did this, or this happened because I did that. And I'm like, you're right. And that was a consequence for your action. Or that was a reward for what you did. Look how you chose to be helpful in that moment. And someone saw that and they went and bought you a drink because you did something that was kind and loving and encouraging. Look how the Lord rewarded you for making a decision to be helpful when you wanted to go play with your friends. I struck out 4 times this weekend. Did you hit it all this week? Did you spend any time in the cages? Did you spend any time? I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to force you, but don't come complain to me. Every decision. But I have to trust them to choose it. You have to begin to do that in their lives. But the best thing that we can do for them is lead by example. If you show your children every day that Jesus is your refuge, that he is your hope, that when something bad happens, you're running into the arms of Jesus, that when something hard is that you're walking through in your life happens, that you're putting your hope in Jesus, you will see the redeeming power and love of Jesus come forth in your life every single time. Because the unfortunate reality is, no matter how hard we try to be the perfect parent, it's unachievable. Jesus is the only one that's perfect. God the Father is the perfect parent. There will always be something that our kids remember that they're like, man, I wish my parents would have done this differently. Or I wish they would have been better at this. Or I wish they would have. There's always going to be something. Which is why we have to trust in God and know that his grace is going to cover where we fail. Because he's so good. But if you can just make sure that you're doing your best to follow the yellow brick road that leads you straight to him, that will make the most massive impact on your children and the lives that they lead. Watching you live it out, not just saying it, not even just going to church, but living it day in and day out. Choosing that every day.